Okay, here we are on December the 6th in the year of our Lord 2025. And as usual, I have a lot of great information for you. Let me just go ahead and click over here to Murtech on Rumble. Alright, this is my Rumble channel, and this is the live stream we're talking about tonight, episode 1768. Let me go ahead and get into this and pause that. Let me close out the live chat and slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. We have information from ACLJ Sekulow, American Center for Law and Justice, Devory Darkins, Doug In Exile, and Wendy Bell. This was from yesterday, but she had some good stuff, so I wanted to go ahead and share that with you. Let me slide down here and give a shout out to Prowix, just started following my channel. Ada Silic just started following my channel, and Sun Salute just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. All right, we have Ms. Flintstone 17 reposted my daily news wrap-up from last night. Big John Perez, Tift 7799, Mary Mitt, Debbie BS, and Susan 080 commented on my episode 1767. Debbie BS commented on my extra 551B and 551C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments and reposting my videos. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. There we go. Just that easy. And in fact, I have one of those thumbs up icons right here below the video that you're watching right now. So if you could scroll down and click that, it would be fabulous. Okay, American Center for Law and Justice, election, Supreme Court 6-3 vote for GOP injunction. Well, that sounds like good news. Let's take a listen and see what that's all about.
The Supreme Court has ruled that Texas, their redistricting is now allowed. Of course, we had California a few weeks ago, and I'd said, so is this a good thing? So tell us, Will.
That's right. You remember there was a big fight over Texas's mid-cycle redistricting map that normally they do it along with the lines of the census. When that comes out, they do a new map every 10 years. This would be mid-cycle, so about 5 years after the last census, where they put forward a proposed map. It got through their legislature and signed by the governor. Remember, those Democrats fled the state trying to stop there from being cloture so that they could vote on this. It eventually passed, and we have it now. Obviously, left group sued. This map would, in theory, could add as many as 5 seats to the House for Republicans based off the way the map is drawn. And the left sued. They got a district court to block the map. So effectively saying the current congressional districts that exist before the next vote are the ones that will remain in place. Texas appealed. The appeals court agreed with the lower court. However, the Supreme Court put out an order because there was an emergency application for a stay on that injunction placed by the lower court, basically asking the Supreme Court to stop the lower court from blocking their new map. And the Supreme Court went forward and said, yes, that Texas is likely to succeed on the merits of its claim that the district court committed at least 2 serious errors. First, the district court failed to honor the presumption of legislative good faith by constructing ambiguous, direct, and circumstantial evidence against the legislature. And second, the district court failed to draw a dispositive or nearly dispositive adverse inference against respondents, even though they did not produce a viable alternative map that met the state's avowedly partisan goals. So the Supreme Court has granted this stay, meaning they are allowing the use of this map for now. The lawsuit still exists at the district court, but at this point, it does not appear there would be time for the appeals process to be exhausted or even the merits of this case to go forward before the midterms next year. This is effectively allowing Texas's redistricting to go into effect and them to have elections in the midterms based off of that.
This is an injunction that stays in place through the appeal process all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. If the U.S. Supreme Court takes the case and ultimately issues a decision, that would be the end of the injunction. And if the Supreme Court does issue that, then that would, of course, they could go back, I guess, at that point. But this is a huge win for the redistricting, especially in these states that have come under scrutiny by the Supreme Court saying, no, listen, you look at this, you look at the census. This is not done in a racial way. I mean, that's really what this is. They look at is, are you trying to put all Democrats into one district based off racial backgrounds and all Republican, and then kind of have these districts that have enough Republicans in it so that they can win.
How does this get to the Supreme Court of the United States? Like, how do they end up being the ones making the decision on this?
There's federal laws on the books that protect against gerrymandering. Now, that doesn't mean that most of our electoral maps, when you actually look at them, are wild. I mean, we have them here in Tennessee where they'll kind of, they can be skinny and long or very kind of like square-like and taken. I think the last special election,
that look like a river going through.
The last special election here just this week had 14 counties in it, starting in downtown Nashville in the city, all the way to where there are farms.
All of us in this room right now are in one of those counties, but we're not in those districts.
Right. That's right. I moved several years back, a few miles away, even same zip code, and yet am no longer in the district that would have been in that special election. But Jordan, I wanted to read a couple of these pieces from this. It's very short because this was just on granting an application for stay. And what we've got here is where the Supreme Court says, in some of this language, a lot of times these opinions or orders that are given by the court are very succinct and just say, after review, application for stay is granted by the Supreme Court. This says, based on our preliminary evaluation of this case, Texas satisfies traditional criteria for interim relief. It goes on to say that Texas is likely to succeed on the merits of its claim that the district court committed at least 2 serious errors, and then explains those errors. But it also says this: Texas has also made a strong showing of irreparable harm and that the equities and public interest favor it. This court has repeatedly emphasized, this is a quote from the RNC versus DNC opinion of the Supreme Court. This court has repeatedly emphasized that lower federal courts should ordinarily not alter the election rules on the eve of an election. It goes on to say the district court violated that rule here. The district court improperly inserted itself into an active primary campaign, causing much confusion and upsetting the delicate federal-state balance of elections. So what we see here is the Supreme Court, in an order, giving an explanation of why it's granting the stay,
right? But
also naming errors that it sees by the district court. It doesn't necessarily have to do that in this case.
No, I think what they are saying, and we've seen this now in time and time again at the court as these cases have come forward, lower courts saying, no, you can't do this because they're kind of looking at the 1970s, post-civil rights movement. And this new court saying we are post-civil rights movement. And we can't keep asserting federal jurisdiction over how a state, based off their census, especially these growing states like Texas and others, and that's how it's based on the census when you add districts. So each 10 years you can either lose seats or gain seats. And we're going to start moving away from just saying, looking at the racial factor. And then, of course, this is a job that is actually given to the states, in the Constitution. It's not the federal government's job to do it. It is really was put in place to fix the harms and the wrongs that were done when America was still racially segregated, Jim Crow laws. The list goes on to make sure that you weren't just shoving one group of people into a district.
As a matter of fact, that's what Justice Kagan, in a dissent, tries to argue, that this is, and that's what the lawsuit was about, because it came from the League of United Latin American Citizens. Right. They were trying to argue this is a race-based map.
Of course.
And what the Supreme Court is saying, no, actually, it's just a political map. It is partisan. It is aimed to give the Republicans an advantage because they are the party in charge. That's always the case when a legislature sets a map. Right. That's why some states have tried to move to an independent body trying to decipher it. Not like that has done much better in states like California. But when you look at what even Justice Alito, who writes a concurring opinion, says that the dissent doesn't even dispute that this is a purely partisan map, even though they're trying to say we shouldn't have granted this stay. But he goes on to say that it's the burden of the petitioner, the person who's suing against the map, to prove and untangle racial and political preferences.
Right.
And that's what the left is trying to always say. If you do a map that it favors the Republican Party, they always try to claim in their lawsuits that is a racist map. That is done for racial purposes. What the Supreme Court's arguing here is that there's nothing in the evidence that proves that this was drawn based off of race. It is drawn based off voting records and things of that nature, that you can't automatically assign racial bias based off of political bias. And that's a very important distinction here of why the Supreme Court decided to grant this stay on the errors that it saw in the lower court's decision of granting an injunction.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, this is a big deal because what it allows then, it opens the door for other red states to be more creative in the way that they're putting together. And it doesn't mean you're going there to disenfranchise people intentionally. You can't do that. But what you can do is say, look, we have a really quickly developing state, especially in states that are adding seats, because like Texas is growing, Florida's growing, Tennessee is growing. So in census to census, you're going to have to add more congressional districts. When you do that, it's not easy to do, by the way. You've got to then go back to the map and figure out, okay, how do we proportion like enough of this vote and how to make it look like the other districts? That's really what you're trying to do as best as possible. Is this state, how do we make it look like kind of where it matches and it makes sense?
Represents the state.
Right, exactly. And so not just necessarily the one urban or three urban areas within that state, but also the suburbs that are providing the workers that go to those urban areas. Right. Also should kind of a say, because half of their life is spent there. And so that's why you'll have a district that starts out in a city and ends up in the suburbs or even past the suburbs because of the commuter kind of new world that we're living in post. I say new world really with post. This is a post 1970.
I say the last 50, 60 years.
Yes,
we are seeing a lot of comments come in, and a lot of them are, frankly, confused. I'll be honest. A lot of people are like, "This feels like a mess, guys. What are you even talking about?" And look, this is why we were able to break these down for you. Got to listen closely. I understand.
Well, and to your point, Logan, that's even what Justice Alito and the court is saying.
So don't worry, it's not just you.
The court in the opinion says the district court violated an established rule of the Supreme Court by improperly inserting itself into an active primary campaign, causing much confusion and upsetting the delicate federal-state balance in elections. So the fact that the court even blocked the map that the Republicans had put in Texas forward for their congressional map caused this confusion. But I think it's also a sign that probably, Jordan, the lawsuit in California will fail as well against California by putting it on their ballot and being able to get the approval of the people of California. There's a good chance that if the Supreme Court is kind of hands off here, that they will most likely be hands off there as well.
Yes. And I mean, I think that's the proper role of the court in most places. It doesn't mean that you're going to like every decision because remember, it impacts everyone, not just the red states. It used to be how the Civil Rights Act applied was to only a certain amount of states, and they had extra scrutiny in the southern states. Now that's been broadened out. So when they've always looked at this, but a big win for Texas. Yeah. Does it mean it's likely a win for California? Sure. But then the balance of power isn't totally upside down, if you know what I mean. So like California may be changing, but Texas is adding 5 Republican seats likely. So California isn't able to accomplish what they wanted to do, which was, outperform Texas.
All righty. There you have it. Let me click on this Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. I'm following their channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Devory Darkins has to say in Jeffries scrambles after natural gas prices hit record low amid affordability crisis. Unbelievable. Affordability crisis. That was caused by Biden. And Trump is improving on that. Let's see what's going on here.
And we're talking about the economy today. So I think it's no secret at this point that more Americans are continuing to complain about the affordability crisis, which has somehow been coined as the proper term here as we move forward. But the bottom line is the Democrats continue to blame everything on the president, including the economy, even though they're the ones who pretty much put us in this position. And the White House is finally getting around to prioritizing affordability, which is why it's being reported that the president's going to be going to a rally, so to speak, next week in Pennsylvania to talk about affordability. So before we get to all of that, what I'm going to do in this video is show you what both sides are saying as usual. And if you're new here, this is all about common sense commentary for these uncommon times. But then we're going to get into some actionable steps. So if you are a person who is blue collar, maybe you have a trade job, right? Maybe you're an electrician. Maybe you're a teacher. Maybe you work for the government, whatever it is. I'm going to give you some actionable steps that you could take to increase your income, because here's the bottom line up front. In case nobody's telling you this key piece of information, which I find to be, something I guess the politicians don't want to say, I don't understand why, is that if you want to improve what's happening in your own house as it pertains to the economy, the only way to do that is to raise your income, because you yourself, you're not going to fix inflation. It's already happened. The damage has been done. The prices are up. They're not coming down. Now, there is a couple of areas where prices come down, and that always happens, which is fuel, okay, gas prices, which has actually hit a record low, and we'll get to that as well. So bottom line is we'll get into how do you raise your income exactly, given all this nonsense that's happening in D.C. and what happened over the past 4 years. We'll talk about that. Also show you what Hakeem Jeffries is up to, because their message is, again, it's all President Trump's fault. And so we will debunk all that. Guys, like this video, share this video, leave a comment down below in the chat. Tell us where you're from. Tell us why you like to watch if you are a repeat viewer. And if you're new here, let people know. And don't forget to subscribe. All right, so let's go to this first clip, which is Hakeem Jeffries himself. And here is the main message regarding affordability from Democrats. Take a listen to this.
Part of the challenge with Republicans is that they've broken all of their promises. They indicated that they were going to lower costs. In fact, lower costs on day one. Costs haven't gone down in America. Costs have gone up. Housing costs are through the roof. Grocery prices through the roof. Electricity bills through the roof. And now, because my Republican colleagues refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, we know tens of millions of people are about to experience dramatically increased health care costs. Democrats are actually the party focused on driving down the high cost of living.
So let's talk about a couple of those points of leverage that you just pointed out. Affordability and healthcare. Many would argue that it's kind of the same story here. President Trump has been saying that affordability is a Democrat hoax, a Democrat con job. Does that mean you do not have Republicans on board with you in reforming healthcare or extending Obamacare subsidies?
It appears that way. It's unfortunate that the president's position, which is the Republican Party's position, is that the affordability crisis in the United States of America is a con job and it's a hoax. No, what was a con job and hoax was the fact that Republicans spent all of last year claiming that they were going to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America, that they were a party committed to addressing the inflationary pressure that the American people were under. That's all they talked about last year. But they lied to the voters. That's the con job.
You lied.
Okay. Now, the con job, just so we're all clear and we're on the same page here, the con job is what Democrats did during the Biden administration. Isn't it fascinating that the party who rages against billionaires are literally the party that made billionaires richer than they've ever been? The biggest transfer of wealth occurred under COVID. All these stock prices, the values of these companies, market caps, all record highs. Why? Because that happened under the Biden administration. So what's happening here, folks, in case it's not obvious, is that Democrats broke it and they're blaming the president, even though, obviously it's his responsibility to fix it because he's in charge. I get that. But they're blaming him. Now, I want you guys to imagine if inflation never happened, would people really be complaining about prices right now? No. If it stayed average, let's say it was just 3% year over year, 3%, okay? Nobody would be complaining about prices, not at the level people do today. So, well, let me just say this. I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. But this is the main talking point from Democrats. So we're going to spend some time debunking it because some people are obviously drinking the Kool-Aid, and we're talking about the younger generation, which we'll address that. And we're talking about people who may not want to actually do their research and see what the numbers actually show. All right. Now, so I guess the question is, what does the White House have to say about this, right? Because as we said previously, I think it's taken them a bit to finally get around to talking about affordability. And I think that's a fair criticism. But here's what Fox News is reporting.
President Trump is launching plans to sell his economic agenda ahead of the big midterms elections, focusing on what else? Affordability. The White House already touting that gas prices have now hit a 4-year low and spending power is up. White House advisor Kevin Hassett says relief is coming. It's coming in 2026, all thanks to President Trump's efforts.
We understand that, like, if a typical person buying a home saw their monthly mortgage payment go up by more than $1,000, grocery prices, a typical family's grocery bag went from about $400 to $525 a month. And so all that happened under Joe Biden. And now we're getting inflation under control. We're getting wage growth to grow again. People's spending power is up about $1,200 so far this year after dropping $3,000 under Joe Biden. It's going to take a little bit more time to get the hole that Biden dug to be completely filled, but we're going to do it. We're highly confident we're going to do it.
Okay. At this point, and this is just the reality, right? So most people don't want to hear about the Biden administration. Okay. Now that it's almost going to be, it's 11 months essentially in the next couple of weeks that he's been in office. Most people don't care about what the prior administration did. What they care to hear is, what are you guys doing forward to fix this? And that's why we talked about it multitude of times, which is they should tap what we would call an affordability czar. This idea was, I think, pushed really hard by Bill O'Reilly. I don't think they took his advice. And Bill O'Reilly has been at the White House multitude of times, has been asked for advice from the president. So I don't understand why they haven't listened to him on that. I think that would be genius. I think someone who can articulate and communicate exactly what the administration is doing regarding affordability would go a long way. But hey, I'm not in the White House, and that's not my thing, right? I'm just a guy who has a podcast, and I care about our country, and I want people to win. I want people to be successful, which is why we always want to show you guys what both sides are saying. So according to Jeffries, it's, Trump's fault. He said he was going to bring prices down on day one. He did bring some prices down regarding, gas, which has hit a record low. And I guess a good time to show you that. Why don't we watch this clip?
And for the holiday season, gas prices going down across the country.
Yeah, according to AAA, the national average just under $3 a gallon. That's the lowest it's been since May of 2021. Now here in Texas, the average a lot lower than that, $2.55 a gallon. Now experts say a cheaper blend is coming our way this winter. Oil prices have been dropping as well, from around $81 a barrel in 2022 to nearly $60 in recent weeks.
Crude oil prices this year have been relatively stable and relatively low. When you look at the national average across the board, starting in January of this year, it's been pretty much a flat line all year long, and that's very rare.
Yeah, okay. But to the person out there where they're feeling the inflation in other areas, gas prices is nice to hear. Like, it's great to go to the gas station and see how low they are. Matter of fact, I have family right now in town. They're here at the house, and they were kind of stunned. In Texas, gas is $2.49. I mean, I love that. $2.49. You know what it is in California? $6. Imagine paying $6, especially if you own an SUV or you own a truck, not a Honda Civic, not a hybrid, and not an electric vehicle. Imagine how much you're paying, especially if you go to work every day. Okay, here it is right here on the screen, national average. So it's back to being a record low, which is good news. And the fact of the matter is, the only other thing that the president can truly lower would be electricity prices. And that has happened across the nation, except in certain states, it isn't going to happen because there's something called a monopoly in the electricity companies. And they are the ones who are going to dictate what the rates are going to be. And that's just a dirty deal between the state itself and those companies. I've seen it firsthand in California alone. Gavin Newsom pretty much bails out PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, SCE, Southern California Edison. These are the two monopolies in California. Their electricity prices are never going to come down. They're only going to go up. and they've gone up in record numbers.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. This is a 1 hour and 11 minute podcast that he did here. I'm 11 minutes into it, so there's another hour to go. The link to this video is in the description box, so if you want to watch more of this, great information. He's pretty much talking about the same thing throughout the video. But yes, and gas prices have gone down, but that's not the only thing that's gone down. Another thing that people rely on are groceries. I don't know why people aren't talking about this more. Grocery prices have dropped by 60 to 70%. When Biden was in office, I was paying $3.95 for a dozen of eggs. They're $1.49 now. Grapes, I was paying $2.99 a pound for grapes. They're down to like $1.39 a pound. Milk is down. Butter's down. Meats are down. Vegetables are down. So, okay, gas is an important staple for people. Most people rely on gas to be able to do their transportation. Gasoline is down. And most people have to eat. And grocery prices are down. Let me know what you think in the chat box or the description, or in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Am I just losing it here or what? Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Devory Darkins. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and see what Doug in Exile has to say about Stephen A. Smith loses his mind. He's still voting Democrat, though. Amazing. Let's see what Doug has to say.
Normally a place for very smart and clever patriots. And now I just want you to watch. It's like watching those dumb cat videos that get billions and billions of views. You know, they put a cat on a turntable and it gets all kinds of clicks. Well, here's Stephen A. Smith on The View, lower IQ, everybody, for many reasons.
So you recently accused Senator Mark Kelly, a veteran, an astronaut, of crossing the line for participating in a video reminding troops that they can refuse to follow illegal orders. Let's see some of what you said, my friend.
Sure.
You know better, Senator Kelly. You know better. How dare you do that? You could go to the House. You can put up drawer of paperwork. You can try to start articles of impeachment if you think there's something illegal. I mean, damn, it ain't like y'all haven't done it before.
Oh, no, I don't know why we're talking like this again. Even when I agree with Stephen A. Smith, I'm making fun of him all the time because he's yelling so much. He's got his Southern Baptist tie and patterned suit on. Snappy. I appreciate anytime someone's wearing a tie. He's screaming at Mark Kelly, the bald Arizona fake astronaut guy, for as if an astronaut, hey, fine, they put you up in a ship. It wasn't that hard, dude. It's not. I've run 5 marathons. You couldn't even, most astronauts couldn't even do that.
You impeached the man twice. Where'd that get you?
Yeah.
Got his behind back in the White House.
Don't think just because Stephen A. Smith is extremely excitable, Stephen A. Smith. Don't think that this guy is on our side, guys, because you're going to see in a minute that this guy has no plan. He's screaming for clicks. He's screaming for attention. I haven't maybe I'm not working hard enough for you guys. Maybe I don't burn enough calories. Screaming all the time. Can you believe these people? Can you believe Stephen A. Smith went on The View?
Had you left them alone since 2020, maybe he wouldn't be back. You don't tell military men and women to ignore an order from the commander-in-chief. You don't do that.
There's no way in hell Stephen A. Smith is even that mad. Now he comes back. Look at his face on The View. I love this one. He has his eyes half shut to show how cool and calm he is. He's going to stand by these words. I appreciate that. But I just think this is, I'm an animator. I watch cartoons. He's doing a Chuck Jones, Bugs Bunny, cool as a cucumber, eyes half shut expression here. I know this. I'm an animator.
Caffeine's a bitch, you know?
Now, let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. Okay. Now, given...
What about taste crimes, like Sonny Hostin's hair put up in a Barbie 1980s top notch?
The fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when
you want to stay loud and wrong?
I didn't, well, you could call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion.
I'm entitled to mine. Is that the defense? I'm entitled to my opinion. Well, not good enough for me. This is gonna develop, guys. We're going places with this one because here's more Stephen A. Smith from his own show. Because he's going to negate almost everything he says in the final clip of The View, but I thought I'd go back to his show to see if we can get him to scream some more.
Stephen A. Smith. The Republicans, or Repeticans, as I call them, because of the Epstein thing, they're straight racist. I already know that.
There's a caller saying Trump and the Republicans, that all of us are racist. Stephen A. Smith, I always need a black person to defend us, so I'll let Stephen A. Smith defend we white people and Trump voters who are always being called racist, despite all the Democrat parties actually harming black people, at the very least, the unborn that are utterly destroyed.
Because it's a double standard. Where's the same energy?
Time out. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Republicans are racist as opposed to specific names. You're just going to call an abundance of people racist.
That's a good man, right? I'll take that defense. That is quality. Notice he doesn't have to scream. He doesn't have to yell. He made his point. Correct. Even when I say Democrats are racist, doesn't mean every single Democrat that walks the earth is a racist. Most of them are. I'm saying their ideology is racist. I'd love to hear his reason why the Republicans, party of Abe Lincoln, who freed the slaves, are racist. I want to hear the reason.
A blanket across the board, the Republicans are straight racist.
Okay.
Goodbye, man. Have a nice day.
Goodbye. Just cut them off. Stephen, that's a wise move. Sometimes you just have to say goodbye to people that are that irrational. And I got nuts on my right, too. I got nuts on my right trying to tell me that Israel is the most evil thing on the Republicans' docket today. Guys, we're about to lose the House and the Senate in 2026, and Trump's whole administration will be done. It'll be lame duck. That scares me. Israel isn't even in my top 100 issues. And if Israel is on your top 100 issues, I don't care if you're on the right or the left. I don't care if you're pro-Israel or anti-Israel. If pro-Israel or anti-Israel is in your top 100 issues, you're not paying attention. Now, the internet wants us all to argue over Israel all day. That pays a lot of money, big bucks. Guys, do a search right now on all of the Ilhan Omar clickbait. I did an Ilhan Omar video this morning, and it's just performing like crazy. Because the internet is driving the news and telling you that like arguing over Israel is the next best thing to sliced bread. And I'm telling you, one thing the internet will not underline, which is important, and the algorithm will not underline, and the AI bots that are trying to get you to think a certain way will not underline, is that the Republicans are in danger of losing the House of Representatives and possibly the Senate in 2026 that will get Trump impeached and Pete Hegseth court-martialed or tried for war crimes. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all of them going to jail. Pam Bondi, prosecuted. You and I's free speech, if they win. When that hits the algorithm and everyone starts talking about that, then I'll believe that people are actually focused on the truth and caring about what's important, not Stephen A. Smith or racism even.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. I'm not letting anybody on either side of the aisle castigate an entire party of people like that. I'm not doing that.
Good man.
That gets us nowhere. Malik, you can call back any other show. But if you have points, make your point. What if you ran across somebody who voted Republican and all they cared about was the economy? What if you ran across a Republican that didn't know a damn thing about any of those other issues you brought up, but all they cared about was safety in the streets?
I agree. That's most of us.
What if you ran across a Republican and all they cared about was being pro-life?
Yep.
And didn't know 2 cents about The economy, affordability, immigration, safety in the streets, our education system, tariffs.
Now, this is a smart man right here. I'm going to propose that there's a twin Stephen A. Smith out there that talks like this and starts screaming, because that's this smart guy here did not show up on The View here.
We're back with Stephen A. Smith. You were about to disagree.
I was disagreeing with this. As a Democrat, the bottom line is this. When we talk about poor people, who ain't thinking about poor people? The Democratic Party, I know I do. I know that most candidates within the Democratic Party that I know they think about poor folks. I know they think about the desolate and the disenfranchised.
I think the problem is they think about them all the time, but they don't do anything. Look up the philanthropy, the index of human philanthropy. It shows who actually gives to charities, who actually gives their time and money to the poor. Who really cares? This is an old book by David Frum. Who really cares? Republicans, conservatives, and Christians. No one, and regardless of strata, regardless of rich, poor, location in the country, we give more volunteer time. We give more blood. That is our actual blood drives. The Beloved Miss Tenaple has given more blood than anyone I know. Like religiously every 3 months, she's given for our 30 years of marriage. This is the best person I've ever known. We give more charity and more of our time and work. Stephen A. Smith even saying he's a Democrat because we think about the poor. Oh yeah, you think about the poor a lot. Numbers show you don't do anything about the poor. By the way, including voting Democrat does nothing to help the poor.
Democrats won big in November, largely on the issue of affordability. Do you worry at all that the president and the Republican Party in general are not in touch with the reality of affordability and prices in this country going up?
Not at all. The president ran on a set of policies which he's been working quickly, along with the help of Congress, to implement to get the Biden inflation of the last 4 years under control. The complaints of Democrats, of progressive Democrats, including Representative Bain, that somehow the president's responsible, when is kind of simple. It's like an arsonist who wants to then claim credit for trying to put out the fire, or for claiming that they have policies that will help. It was their policies over the 4 years of the Biden administration, the profligate spending, that created the worst inflation in my adult lifetime. Not since I was a senior in high school have we seen this kind of inflation. It takes time to get that under control, but the president's made great progress.
No one put more money in poor people and poor minorities' pockets than the Trump administration.
I get that. But what I'm saying is that during the campaign, were you doing what it takes to win? You had too many people going after him for stuff that wasn't going to stick. It wasn't going to influence his voters. So what I would say to you, Whoopi, and what I would say to anybody that doesn't want J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or somebody like that to succeed him, focus on what's going to win.
Now, hold on there. This is what I mean by, this is a totally different Stephen A. Smith on this show, who's a raving imbecile. What do you mean if you don't want J.D. Vance to win? Why would you not want J.D. Vance to win? Because he's going to be running against Gavin Newsom. Wow, Stephen A. Smith, would you want to subject the poor and racial minorities to Gavin Newsom, a white, rich Nepo baby who destroyed California, brought in the illegals that you don't want here, that took all y'all's jobs and housing for the poor that you supposedly think about? Why? Why are you still a Democrat? You make no sense, buddy. He's going, then we just got to win. We got to do whatever it takes to win. Why in the world do you want the next administration of J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, who will be next to save America's life? Why would you want them to lose? Do you hate people?
Yeah. That's where my sports background comes in. Tell me what's going to win. I don't want to hear, but I understand.
I think your sports background comes from being a big, dumb jock who knows nothing about political tactics. If you're supporting the Democrats, that's your sports background. You got hit in the head on a technical foul in basketball one too many times. Your head hit the wood.
And the LGBTQ community is important. I understand that the desolate and disenfranchised is somebody we should always be looking out for. I understand the economy. I understand immigration. I get all of that. But the point is, I'm trying to win, to make sure that I'm in office and you're not. What is it going to take? The Democrats did not do that last time.
What is the winning issue now?
Affordability and safety.
Yes.
Really, affordability and safety. Okay, when the Democrats were the ones that had 30% inflation every year, pretty much. Okay? I mean, when prices double and triple, that's actually double 100% inflation. But it was like 30% inflation over 3 years. Okay, so affordability and safety. Hell, the Democrat mayors and governors in these blue states won't allow Donald Trump to allow the National Guard to go in and make their streets safe. So yeah, I'm with Doug here in Exile, and Stephen A. Smith has definitely lost his mind. Okay, as you can see, this video does come from Doug in Exile. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Alrighty, let's jump back here, and I've got, before we get into Wendy Bell, somebody shared this with me here on Facebook, and then I shared it out also. But this is from Dennis Michael Lynch. Great information here. Let me get the, darn it. Let me get the volume going for you here. There we go. And back this up. Here we go.
Everybody in America needs to hear this. Everybody. The White House is now saying that the welfare fraud that took place in Minnesota, that is thought to connect all the way up to the governor and across the board to people like Ilhan Omar, if those allegations are in fact true, they should all be going to jail, because the White House says that this is going to be the largest welfare fraud case in American history. Now, on top of that, Stephen Miller last night told Fox News that 75%, and he said that could be an understated number, but at least 75% of the Somalians who are in Minnesota are on welfare. They are collecting some sort of benefit from the U.S. government. That means you're paying for it. I'm paying for it. 75%. Get rid of these people, send them all home, and cut off all access to the United States. And let me tell you something. It's not just happening in Minnesota. It's also happening in other states, probably all 50.
Yep.
Texas, for example. The AG in Texas has just launched a $100 million lawsuit against a Muslim group that was creating this massive thing called Epic City, or whatever the name is. They've changed it so many times. The whole city is completely committed to Islam. And you know it and I know it. Sharia law will wind up being what goes on in every home in that place. Well, they lied. Continuously lied about what they were offering, what they were taking. The money that wasn't supposed to go here went there. I mean, it was just all over the place fraudulent. That's the allegations from the documents that have just been issued in Texas by the AG. $100 million lawsuit. How many times do we have to look at these communities? How many times do we have to see these scumbags who are coming over here, trying to change our culture, steal from you, steal from me, change everything around? Let's cut this off now. Send them all back and cut off everybody from coming here. We don't need them. We don't want them. They add no value at all. I hope you share this video. And if you're new to me, give me a like. You won't be disappointed unless, of course, you're somebody who's committing fraud in the Muslim community. Then I'm your worst enemy.
All right, there you have it, folks. I cannot disagree with that. And let's get back here and see what Wendy Bell has to say, robbing America blind. All right, let's check it out.
Aggravating, but I want you to get what you should get. Well, welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. You know, it really bothers me, and I think the Black community should be pretty hacked off by this, how much the left has used race as kind of a cudgel in their machinations of suck. You know, there is actual racism out there. And I'm sure if you spoke with somebody who doesn't look like you, they'd probably be able to give you some timely examples. That is not the story of America. That is not our legacy. That is not our history. That is not what's baked into the fabric of this country. We've had bumps and growth spurts along the way. But it is despicable to me how racism and browbeating people into this idea that make sure nobody thinks you're doing anything even remotely discriminatory because they're going to call you a racist is baked into every single garbage piece of, let's just say, fraud, theft, corruption, and abuse that has befallen our country in the last several years. You mean to tell me that the people in Minnesota don't know damn well what the Somalian community has been able to get away with? And by the way, kudos to them. I mean, in a sick way. There were no guardrails, Ilhan Omar said. There were no guardrails allowing these people to grift off of the welfare, basically COVID welfare system, to the tune of $1 billion to $10 billion, right? But the fear that has been sown into people, so worried that if they don't fall over themselves to accommodate somebody who is of a different background, that they're going to have some boomerang of racism come back and hit them in the face. And so they allow fraud, waste, and abuse to go on unabated. You know, I wanted to call today's show America's Willows. Because if you think about it, if you know something's going on and you're not saying something because you're afraid, you don't have much of a backbone. I don't have a whole lot of time for that. Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, fill in the blanks. I want you to hear this woman. She's in Ohio. She's like, look, I know that Minnesota's got a Somalian problem right now. 80,000 of them living in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, what have you area, right? Where you have ultimate culture collision. It's also going on in Columbus, Ohio, where she is, and she wants you to know about it.
Come see Columbus, Ohio, fraud investigators. If you go to the government-assisted housing areas, you will find that most of the housing is Somalians. I would say about 80% of the government-assisted housing in Columbus is occupied by Somalians. And the parking lot is occupied with a whole bunch of brand new cars. And the women walking around have designer purses with EBT cards, and they have Apple iPhones stuck up in their hijabs. Yeah. And then go to the businesses that are owned by the men. Because see, what happens is when you have a restaurant or when you have a little corner store and you have a couple of wives and you only have to claim one, then that means the other wives get EBT cards, and you can use those EBT cards to buy food for your store or your restaurant. Yeah. Or what you can do is you can get a home health aid company. And then you only hire Somalians to work the home health aid. And what you do is you just make sure their paperwork looks right. It don't have to be right, but you just make sure it looks right. And then you send them off for those home health aid jobs. Y'all don't want to talk about fraud.
Tip of the iceberg. It's been going on forever. It's got to be the oldest game in town from the beginning of our inception as humanity. There's always people who, instead of following the rules or working hard or doing the right thing, north is still north, will spend an inordinate amount of time breaking the law, fudging the rules, breaking the system, robbing us blind. In fact, why else do we have ridiculous taxes? Is there any reason you can imagine that between 25 and 35% of your salary, before you even buy anything or get it in your pocket, is taken out? And then your local and your county and the city and the water and the real estate and the la 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 la. So at the end of the day, when you go out to buy something, which also is taxed, Your original amount of money is whittled down to what? 40%. Do you think other people deserve 60% of your hard work? No. It just took something so brazen, so outrageous, so totally unbelievable as poor, illiterate, inbreeding, check out Somalia, folks. Somalians to be driving around in luxury vehicles with Louis Vuitton handbags for everybody to see what the hell was going on. It's almost as ridiculous as a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic that you paid for because your government created the virus. Your government shut down the world. Your government foisted upon you an injection. And then your president, Joe Biden, stood on stage and admonished you and scolded you and told you you were garbage. Yeah, I voted for Donald Trump. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, I did. Why didn't you? When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, let's talk about the tip of the iceberg. What did Ilhan Omar know? Well, apparently she's known a lot. She's known a lot for years. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network. I know, I love that woman. Isn't she great? With her big, beautiful...
Okay, let me get this past her bottom of the hour break, and we will jump back in and listen to some more
and
good
Cleveland,
stuff.
right? You know, or...
Here we go.
Well, welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. You know, I've chewed on, and it's not common that I take home or definitely chew on different stories that linger with me. I can drop it. I can go home. I can do what I got to do. I couldn't drop Jake Tapper and Ilhan Omar yesterday. We played for you the audio of Jake having 6 minutes with this Minnesota Somalian American representative, right? Whose district is the central nervous system of corruption that we know of today. Because you could take Minneapolis, St. Paul out of it and put in Philadelphia. You could put in San Francisco. You can put in Cleveland, right? There is stuff like this going on because of the outrageous bad decision-making during COVID. When we had elected leaders who saw dollar signs and who agreed to pass multi-trillion-dollar measures that were arranged so hastily, purposefully, so as to invite a world of fraud, knowing full well that they were going to basically bankrupt our children and grandchildren before we even have them. And when Jake Tapper had 6 minutes alone with Ilhan Omar, he allowed her to play the victim card. In fact, he set the stage for it. He made the conditions ripe. He made the uterus fluffy, if you will, for the egg to then be fertilized and get comfy and begin to grow. And what is that growth? It's always the victim. Well, I'm a minority. How dare you go after a whole community? We're black looking. Don't you know that's racist for you to tell us that? You can't hold us accountable for stealing billions of your dollars. Well, Ilhan said, well, you know, it's just they didn't put up the guardrails around COVID and all of the funding. So, you know, it is what it is. Tim Walz, you know, we've got such a great city, it invites criminals. Really? And I chewed on that yesterday. And I chewed on it all flipping night long because Jake Tapper would come out, and we have his sound later. You know, they caught the guy allegedly put out those pipe bombs on January 6th. It's a black guy. Now, I wouldn't care it's a black guy if Jake Tapper didn't call the guy white. I mean, for the love of all that's holy, is there no low for these people to shape a narrative that is just absolutely fictitious? No. And so I want to know, what does Ilhan Omar know? How much has she been a part of this? Come on. This woman is not the Virgin Mary when it comes to fraud. Please, you have to be a moron to not see what's going on. So let's read about this. It's an interesting story, and there are multiple iterations of it. One in Gateway Pundit, one in the New York Post. I kind of like this one. It kind of gives you a quick rat-a-tat of some of her things in the past that make you go, What did Ilhan Omar know about the $1 billion welfare fraud case in her Minnesota district? Please. Right? I had no idea. What? U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar's close ties to the $1 billion welfare scam in her Minnesota congressional district are becoming uncovered. Omar held parties at one of the key restaurants named in the fraud, knew one of its now convicted owners, and one of her own staffers has also been convicted, both for stealing millions of dollars. That's not okay. Omar even introduced the bill that led to the $250 million in fraud. Yet she claims to have been completely unaware of it. No, I don't know. No sé, no habla inglés, right? When they pull over the trucker. No sé. Really? Omar knew these people. She knew who they were. People she personally knew were making tens of millions of dollars in this program. Claimed a guy named Bill Glahn. He's a policy fellow with the Minnesota-based Center of the American Experiment. Why do we care about this guy? Well, he says she's been inside this safari facility on numerous occasions. This is a facility through which they would operate the Feeding Our Future scam. You know, where it made perfect sense that one dude was providing 18,000 meals a day around the clock for 7 months, right? Because that makes sense. She was inside that building numerous times, and she couldn't put 2 and 2 together. Like either she's terribly naive or she knew and didn't care. Isn't this what Kristi Noem said about Tim Walz? Either he's the biggest idiot in the world or he's in on it. I don't really see a door number C. Is there a third door I'm unaware of here? No. Around $250 million was handed out by the Minnesota government to provide meals to school children who don't exist in those numbers. In fact, I'd love to find one. Find me one kid who got one meal from one of these defendants. Wouldn't that be a kick in the pants? So anyway, there are multiple connections between Ilhan Omar, these businesses, these people, the grifting, and 80,000 people voting one way. It's a hell of a lot of people in one community to help you stay in office. Because when you're in office and you're allowing the grift to continue, I'm sure the kickbacks to your political campaign coffers must be quite significant. I mean, how else does Ilhan Omar go from owing $45,000 when she joined Congress in 2019 to having a net worth of over $30 million? That's a hell of a rate. Wouldn't you think? 60,000% difference. So now Fox News is reporting that ICE is on the ground in the Twin Cities. So we're not fooling around. We are going door to door, apparently, in these Somalian neighborhoods. It's not hard to figure out who everybody is because they've got the Mercedes-Benz or they've got the whatever. What's that wagon called? The wagon that the $100,000 whatever Mercedes.
Escalade?
No, it's that Mercedes wagon thing that's so ugly but so expensive. And people are like, oh, yeah, all you have to do is find the fancy cars, knock on the door. Oh, are you Somalian? No English. Here's Fox News.
Yeah, federal agents are now on the ground in the Twin Cities, focusing on the Somali community and anyone who is in the country illegally. We know they have been stopping some folks out on the street asking for their IDs, also going door to door looking for specific individuals. All of this, as you mentioned, comes after those massive fraud schemes in Minnesota that involved mostly folks from the Somali community, fraudulently charging the state more than $1 billion for social services that were never performed. When Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who's become the face of the Somali community in Minnesota, was asked why the fraud got so out of control, she said this.
I think what happened is that, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
All Around $250 million was handed out by the Minnesota government to provide meals to school children during the pandemic from 2020 onward. Instead, that money was pocketed by corrupt business owners, including Salim Ahmed Saeed. He's the co-owner of Safari Restaurant, where Omar held her 2018 Congressional Victory Party. She, or Saeed, I should say, was found guilty in August of stealing over $12 million for serving 3.9 million phantom meals during the COVID-19 pandemic. See, here's the thing that I was chewing on. When you get away with grifting, as long as some people do, every day the volume gets cranked up a little bit. You get a little bit more brazen. Your scam gets a little more unbelievable. Your claims become more incredulous until all of a sudden you're serving 3.9 million meals in an absolutely ridiculous and untenable time period. And then when you call them out on it, Ilhan Omar blames COVID or Congress that passed all of the money that you and I were like, what are you doing? No, right? Or we'll blame racism. Well, you just don't like people who have dark skin. Well, we don't really give a fat rip about what people's skin looks like. Are they stealing from us? Period. Fox News continues. House Oversight is now investigating Tim Walz and, this is interesting, Attorney General Keith Ellison.
President Trump and Republicans are railing against Governor Tim Walz, and the House Oversight Committee, which has launched its own investigation into the fraud, is now requesting documents, records, and communications from both Walz and State Attorney General Keith Ellison after reports they and other state officials may have been warned and ignored those warnings, allowing this fraud to happen.
The state employees in Minnesota rang the bell. They blew the whistle that there was massive fraud. And yet Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, apparently turned a blind eye to that for fear of political retaliation from the large voting bloc of Somalis.
Yeah, close to 80,000 Somalis live in Minnesota. They have become a powerful voting bloc for Democrats. But there are now multiple federal investigations into this fraud. Folks close to those cases tell us that what we've seen so far may be just the tip of the iceberg.
How many people do you think of those 80,000 who kind of miraculously appeared after COVID? How many of those 80,000 do you think have gone through the process of becoming legal citizens? Because, you know, that process takes years. It's a commitment. It takes sacrifice. It takes education. It takes all of that. How many of them do you think went through it? Yeah, none. I would say. I don't know. Negligible number to the degree. This Saeed guy who was friends with Ilhan, who was the co-owner of this safari place where this Feeding Our Futures grift took place, found guilty of stealing over $12 million. Where did he spend it? He spent $2 million on a Minneapolis mansion, and he apparently had a little bit of a shopping habit. $9,000 a month at Nordstrom. Ilhan Omar, we need to say, has not been directly linked to this scandal. The same way Joe Biden apparently has not been directly linked to his Biden crime family corruption, right? The same way Barack Obama, was he linked to all those drone strikes that killed all the civilians as we lose our ever-loving minds about double tap, Pete Hegseth? Isn't it also disgraceful, so predictable, so obvious? Yes. But remember, there are a lot of willows out there who don't want to be called racist. They don't want to be called discriminatory. I say, if you break our laws, I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from. I don't care where you or what you look like. Go home. You are no longer welcome here. Ilhan, I'm speaking to you. When we come back on the Wendy Bell Radio.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. Let me click on this Rumble link. Amazing. And show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. I am following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. She definitely has a way with words on how to express things that are going on. And I completely, 100% agree with her. Okay, I want to share a little bit of information here with you from crypto.com.
Let's be clear, cryptocurrency is no longer emerging, it's here. And this latest move cements that reality in the biggest way yet. Trump Media Group just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com, the world's top crypto platform.
They're teaming up to scoop up $6.4 billion in CRO, the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi, staking rewards, and real-world perks like cashback on your spends to launch America's first CRO treasury. When it's done, this new company will be the biggest CRO holder out there.
Want in on the action? Head to Crypto.com today and grab some CRO. Let's make crypto great again.
Okay, here we are. Now I copied the live chats into a comment so that they will be, got a lot of nice chats here from Deb Brandt, Blue Peahen, Debbie BS, and She B63. Thank you very much, folks, for your chats. I greatly appreciate that. Also, let me jump over here and share with you my playlist. Back it up here. My watch later for my Mertech Daily News Wrap-Up. I'm going to share this from YouTube. Generally, I've been sharing from Rumble, a playlist from Rumble, but there was a lot of information on YouTube that I want to share with you, that channels that don't have on YouTube don't have a channel on Rumble. So the Why Files, we're going to start off with that. Humanization project, Human Alien Hybrid Program. I thought that was interesting. Did some J6 pipe bomb information, some information about Elon with Dorilla Dog, Robert Gouveia. Now, there are some channels like Benny Johnson. He has a channel on Rumble and on YouTube. So does Robert Gouveia. Dorilla Dog doesn't have a channel on Rumble. Newsmax, they have a channel on Rumble, but they very rarely post anything on there. So we're going to have some information from Newsmax. And Devory Darkins, now he has a channel on both, but he posts different information on each channel. But at any rate, I've got 68 videos in here, so it's going to take us throughout the night. It's going to be a great wrap-up. So give me a chance to go ahead and add to that. I believe there's some more information that's come out since I've last updated it. And go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer. And meet me back here at 9:30, and we'll get that going. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for spending your time with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.